Hello. Uh, it's been about a day, so um, I was trying to think of things I missed last time, and I thought of a few of them. I'm feeling pretty good today. I can feel sort of sore throat in the very back as I start to talk, but otherwise, I haven't felt anything. Um, so I don't know. I don't think it's likely I had COVID, but you can be asymptomatic. Um, so maybe, but uh, nothing bad for me. I'm very thankful for um, my vaccine and booster. So things I remembered that I missed. A couple things from way back that were important. Um, some medical problems. I've been mostly healthy my whole life, with the exception of a couple things. When I was young, I don't remember age range. I was at blind grandma's house, and I know my mom was there, and I kept getting I was sick, I was throwing up, and I kept going from a hot extreme to a cold extreme. And I refused to go to the hospital. Um, and at some point, they just boxed me up in the car and took me. Uh, I had pneumonia, and I was on my way to dying. Um, and the whole thing lasted a while. I couldn't tell you how long. Days, I don't know. Um, the other important one was I had to be 18. um, I don't remember exactly. What I remember was being like lifting up a garage door. So I was like, I bent down, I squatted, and I picked up a garage door. Um, and then I felt a pain in my testicle, and um, fast forward, I was told it was epididymitis, which was a backflow of urine caused an infection down in my testicle. I don't know if it's treatable now, but back then they gave you pain medicine and that was it. Uh, there's nothing else that could be done. You just had to suffer through it till it was over. It was terrible. Um, and to this day, I am terrified of anything or any pain down there. I don't have any interest in being touched on my testicle. I don't have any interest. I just let it live its life and do whatever it wants to do and never harm me ever again. It was a terrible, awful experience. Um, Especially bad to sit in the hospital and have the people look at you and say, "No, that's it. See you in 8 hours." Um, so other than that, I can't recall anything. I was mostly healthy. Um, Other things I missed. Oh, in the school portion, the Navy school, in the electronics, a big difference is that we studied on the component level. So nowadays you just swap out circuit boards and stuff. You would never troubleshoot a circuit board to find out which piece is shorted or messed up. But that's what we did. So if you imagine giant 70s circuit boards with components you can see with your naked eye and actually pull out and put on the circuit board and solder on there, like these are not like miniature tiny things. These are um, big pieces. That's what we studied. So um, you would actually troubleshoot. They'd hand you a circuit board and say, "What's wrong with it?" So you'd have to find the component that was missing or broken, and put it in. So it was kind of neat, and that was the only thing I enjoyed because it's like a puzzle, figuring out a puzzle. Um, and so we'd have all the tools and devices for that, um, which comes into play later or now because when we talk about um, the ship had the giant old circuit boards, and you wouldn't necessarily have full circuit board replacements. Um, so being able to um, look at it or study it or troubleshoot it is an important skill. There was a little bit about radar. Um, I think one of our tests we were given a diagram of a circuit board and asked to figure out what it does. So things like that. Um, so, oh, okay, yeah, I remember now. We stopped at 9/11. We were on the ship. We had done a lot of stops along the Mediterranean, around on the Arabian Peninsula. We were headed to South Africa, then Rio, then the Caribbean. Ooh, I was very excited to get some treasure added to my collection to take home. Um, when I was woken up suddenly and pulled to the um, the big group break room area with the big TV, the satellite TV, and watched the events of September 11th, 2001 happen. So the ship made a tight swerve. We went up to um, the Arabian Gulf, um, and we sat there for not very long. Well, for a long period of time. Relatively sit there, it's a big. You're always moving around. But we were in that area for what felt like a very long time. Um, Not very long after we began launching planes, and on the nuclear reactor panel, you have reactor power. You can actually see, um, they're steam powered. So every time a plane launches, it uses a bunch of steam. This causes a short spike in reactor power. So you can actually tell whenever a plane is being launched off the flight deck. See this quick spike in power. Um, and the other thing you can do is you can go up to the crow's nest, like at night, and so there's not many lights. Oh, that's too probably one of the most beautiful things I miss. It's a short side story here, but walking all the way up there, up the stairs, being out there at night with the lights off and being able to look up into the real sky. Um, it becomes almost painful now to look up at the sky anywhere I've been now. Um, and the more time that goes by, the worse it is because I have less of a clear memory of what I know it looks like without light pollution. Um, and I think it's one thing that we don't think about that really harms our children. Um, I would like to see it again. Um, I think we lose something of ourselves, or we have lost something, and we pass that on to our kids. I think there are entire generations that grow up now without being able to look up and know what the sky really looks like. So, um, yeah, we're sitting there in the Arabian Gulf. We're launching planes. I don't do it all the time, but one of my things, I prefer. to be alone, um, to sort of recharge. There's not many places you can really be alone and it not be weird on a ship. Like, sure, there's a lot of compartments you could go, but if someone were to open up the compartment and find you just sitting there, I doubt good things will happen. Um, excuse me. So, going up there at night, especially nice, but you can watch the planes go off, um, and they would be fully loaded, bombs, missiles, and then I would start to see them launch when I was down there, and it started to tick something in my brain. You know, um, we get some news um, uh, about my what be happening. Bombing the wrong target or innocent people killed, and each time I would see a plane launch full and then come back empty, it kept poking my brain until it became very unpleasant every day. Um, it's hard to even be a cog in the machine. You don't need to be for this whole thing to work. Yeah, you need a plane. People who built the plane. You need a pilot to press the button. You need the people to give orders to order you to press it. You need all those people who made it possible for the plane to launch, including me and everyone around me. That guilt, that responsibility gets divided up. Um, it's especially hard when you have a country sort of in bloodlust with nationalism, um, just crying out for revenge. Um, and we make that baseline, and it's pretty understandable. But the true reality is that the number of people guilty of what they did, and far less than the number of people that we killed in retribution. And that's a difficult thing to work with for me. Um, Obviously, there's different countries involved, different legal systems, um, but that starts to become even more trouble later on when we hold and torture prisoners indefinitely. Um, it's not really relevant to what was poking my brain at the time, but you start to hopefully see the beginnings of that slippery slope, how we got there, so we don't ever go again. Um, of course, saying anything about your misgivings, um, you will receive an unlimited but brief amount of pushback from anyone around you or your superiors. Um, but I'm sure they put me on some kind of list. Um, and remember, like I said, once you get in trouble with one thing, it follows you. And this is one of the things that pissed me off a lot, because whatever troubles I had in school followed me to the ship. Um, that was a big problem for me because a lot of what I overcame in school, I was very proud of. Um, and remember, I had the most trouble in the first school, and then things just got better and better. But anytime they treat you the same, they don't treat you as if you've had any growth. Um, it's just going to cause more problems. Of course, I'm responsible for my own actions. Yes, yes. Um, but the institution, the policies they had in place, um, served no purpose but to aggravate um, and compound any existing problems. Even with my brain being poked, my reservations about being the cog or being one of the cogs that helped um, these bombings, these retaliation bombings that we did, I would have finished out my service. I might have even considered doing more. Um, but there were a couple of things that happened that changed my mind. I'm trying to think if there's anything important. Oh, yeah, you also have to remember that we are also in a lot of time has passed, years since the breakup, um, where my first serious girlfriend was cheating on me. We had the long distance. This was on my mind. Um, Now, it obviously gets pushed down. You know, you have your daily life. You gotta eat, go stand and watch. You gotta qualify. You gotta train. You gotta be a cleaning slave. Um, but it was always on my mind. You know, what did I do wrong? What could I have done different? Um, this starts to manifest, and I don't understand this till much later. Um, this anxiety, um, this pain becomes a physical pain, and I actually start to feel pain in my heart. Um, I can recognize this now, and there's a lot of things I can do about it, but back then I had no idea. Um, Now, the timeline on this is very jumbled, so deep apologies I don't get this right. Um, but I start to feel this every day, and every day it gets a little bit worse. Every day. So I start to live with this. Now we're out to sea, so this is pushed down a lot. It doesn't matter very much, but it is an extra stressor, and I can feel it physically impacting my body and my heart now. Um, and this is the first time that I start to become conscious that the mind can trick you, sort of. And trick is a bad word, but you can manifest actual pain or feelings from thoughts. I guess is a better way to describe it. Other important things that I remember. There were times, sometimes you'll see pictures where the ship is stopped and you can jump off the side of the ship and swim in the ocean. And that was a big no, no from me, dog. Um, I watched to see if anyone got eaten by sharks or stung by um, poisonous jellyfish, but no. Yeah, there's a few things I'm certain of in life. One is I have no interest in swimming in the ocean. That does not seem smart at all. Um, oh, the hottest I've ever been. And no, ladies, not my signature move against the wall where I lean and have a cup in my hand. Um, down in the plant, there now every sort of division is responsible depending on your jobs, for different maintenance, and the maintenance can be every day, every year, whatever. So there's tons of books on this. So one of the pieces of maintenance is deep in the bowels of the ship, and we are in a summertime in hot water. Um, I don't want to tell you a temperature and then it be wrong, but somewhere where the temp meter was pegged out at over 130 degrees. Um, you had to peel down to one layer of clothes. So normally you wear like basically coveralls, like a one piece. Um, so you have to work in shifts of about 1 minute. Um, I can only describe it to you because it's very fuzzy in my mind. But you're standing basically in a line. One person goes, excuse me, hold on. Whatever we're trying to calibrate or work on. Um, the people behind him are drinking water constantly at the water fountain, and it's hot where you are in line, but where you actually are near the piece of equipment, um, I have no idea the temperature. All I know is your pores. You're not sweating so much as you are pouring water out of every pore. It's constant. Um, y- you don't have very long to do whatever you need to do before you go tag out. Someone taps you on the shoulder and you go and you try to drink water. I am pretty certain that if you had an IV of fluid at that point, they would not be able to put enough water into you. Um, then you are losing by standing there, whatever temperature it was. It is, I remember it as one of the most bizarre feelings of my life. Um, it is just almost impossible to describe. Every pore of your body is just flowing water out of it. Um, there was an interesting thing that I noticed. Reading the manuals is one of the biggest questions I ever get asked when I tell any stories. Oh, so you know how to blow up the ship. Nuclear reactors are very safe, but and anything like that would require going past safety, multiple layers of safety that would take multiple people and different parts of the ship. But I read something that tickled my mind, and I'm not sure anybody knew about it, or if anybody did, they never said anything. Um, but there was a way in the diagram. Um, I'm one of the only people who read these for fun. Um, in the circuit diagrams, I guess when they built it, you run a lot of tests and there's some test switches. But if I read it right, I think one person could have. Um, it was work-wise very satisfying. The work part of the Navy, the working on the nuclear reactor, the qualifying on it, the training on it, that part um, I very much enjoyed, and I still look fondly on to this day. The institution, the people who put in charge, the rank system, um, I have contempt for. Um, there are a few things um, that were big problems back then. If they fixed these, then good. They didn't care about mental health. Um, they just put you in the troublemaker system and did their best to shoot you out, metaphorically, and get rid of you. That was their way of dealing with it. One big thing I forgot to mention before. 'Cause remember, I traveled and I saw and I asked people how they lived their lives. I talked about healthcare, um, but even beyond that, I was surprised to learn um, the state, education. So most places had universal education, universal healthcare. The idea that you could go bankrupt for not being able to pay a healthcare bill was just became barbaric in my mind when I saw, oh, okay, well, this makes sense. And of course, the military gives you universal healthcare. This is something that also bothered me a great deal. Not that they did, but that we didn't do it for everyone. If you have enough money to build giant war machines, um, to take countless lives, uh, yeah, you should have the money and priority to take care of your own citizens at home. This was just a gross um, imbalance of morality for me. So yeah, so I would talk to these people. They had universal healthcare, universal education, um, like paid sick leave. Um, um, None of this. Um, what's the backwards Orwellian terms we use? Right to work, way so they can fire you for any reason. Um, just nonsense that we have here comparatively. Really um, opened my eyes. Um, Now, sometime during my schooling, I think it was, there was an election. It was my first election I could vote for, I think. I voted for um, George Bush Jr., the Republican. He was from Texas, like me. Um, it was a I didn't put a lot of thought into it. It was just I was young. It was not a subject I yet had a passion for. Um, and a lot of military, I was told our if we didn't vote for him, our pay wouldn't go up. Um, and our pay was abysmal compared to what we were doing. Um, Another thing, just odd. Other standard of living in other places just so much better. um, and people just generally happier. Now I did my share of traveling later. We'll talk about that. In the United States and in Texas. So I met people like I met overseas walking around. Excuse me, hold on. Okay, sorry. Um, so very eye-opening to travel the world. Mark Twain has some quote. I can't remember it. It's something about travel and prejudice. I'm not sure. Um, so on those ways, I'm very thankful to have the opportunity to have seen my potential, to have studied my potential, and to explored some of the world. um, about being the cog in the machine. I'm not proud of it. It weighs on my mind still to this day. Um, and the way they respond to that weighs on my mind. Um, there started to be problems that were not, they snowballed, I guess is the best way to describe it. Like I mentioned, you mess up once before, it's on your record, um, and then they always bring it up and rehash it, or, you know, on your evaluations, um, they'll give you some cranky score or something. It, for the most part, what I remember on my evaluations, all the like technical points, all the training were always good or very high marks, and then of course, um, all the old coots um, trying to tell me what to do, who I didn't have any respect for. Low marks. Nothing really surprising there. I did have one, probably my biggest issue in my sort of direct chain of command, to describe it briefly. The military is divided into this archaic officer and enlisted thing. This goes way back in history. Just think of the officers as the snobby elites in charge of um, the Army and the Navy. So there's a separate tier. So every officer, even the first day who joined, um, outrank any enlisted, however long they've been there. Now this is just gross inequality. Um, so my own evaluation of someone beyond the basic respect of another human being, especially when you're talking about technical jobs like this. So they're what they know, what they could do. I want to learn from people who are more experienced, who have more knowledge. Um, that's my goal, to learn from them. If I can't learn from you, I'm not really sure why you're in charge of me. Um, so in a fair system, or if you haven't demonstrated anything, if your only demonstration is you've been there for so long and that's it, and there are other people more qualified, we're going to probably run into some issues. Um, Now, this is tapered off a lot. Realism does that to idealism. Most jobs you'll find are still stuck in the good old boy system, um, and that's kind of the reality we live in. So that's had to be tempered a lot. But I was young, fresh bull, um, and the chief I had. Now in, in the Navy, when you get a high enough enlisted rank, they sort of give you it's a similar uniform to the officer, makes them feel better, I guess. The khakis. So this chief I had in charge of me, just he'd been there a long time. He'd been at the desk a long time. I don't think he worked in a very long time, at least on the same, you know, job that I've been working on. His level of knowledge, non-existent or low. He was a paper pusher. Um, and that did not bode well for how we got along. So, because I'm young, I'm ready to train, I'm ready for all this knowledge, and he had none. Um, I would find people on a parallel or outside of my chain of command who were more receptive, who I saw were competent. So I wanted to sort of tutor under them. I would ask them questions, and they would see, I'm not just a troublemaker. I'm here to do my job. Um, all this other nonsense, I don't care very much about. And if we focused on the job part, everyone would get along. It doesn't work that way in the military, at least back then. Um, but so I did get, there were some officers I really got along with, some enlisted sort of on a different chain of command, you know. So I just wasn't some fuck up like they wanted to portray. There were a couple big incidents that happened that really pushed the snowball or it kept rolling. Um, I'm going to do my best to remember them. I don't. Um, so this is going to be a little disjointed, um, and I apologize for that. If I end up remembering them later, I'll talk about them. The big thing that I remember, and it's stupid to call it a big thing. Um, so we were headed back, I believe, or about to head back. It took a long time to get another aircraft carrier group out there to sort of relieve us to go bomb those people. Um, so we're out there for a while. I was on my last qualifying for my main job that I wanted, that I was there for. It takes a while to you qualify for all the little jobs, but nuclear reactor operator. So this is the ultimate goal. Once you qualify for your main job, your life changes. At least back then in the Navy, you're no longer treated like a scrub. You're no longer the bitch. You're no longer the one they call to go pick up a piece of trash that an officer walked past and saw and then called to report but couldn't bend down and pick up themselves. You're not that bitch to go and do it anymore. It's like a separate sort of rank in the system. Um, so that is the ultimate thing. Now, so we're on our way back. Now, when we go back, we're going to go through. You're going to go to back to dock and do a lot of refitting. Um, there was talk about decommissioning, but maybe not because of having to bomb more people or wanting to bomb more people. Um, but we knew the reactors were probably going to be shut down. Well, when you're qualifying on to be a nuclear reactor operator, you need to qualify while the reactors are up. This will be important in a few minutes. So anyway, I was down there at the bottom of the ship doing my shift. You do a lot of training shifts, of course. Um, you have to learn everything that can go wrong. Um, Steam leaks, valve fails, your gauge doesn't work anymore, you're getting the wrong information, everything you have to recognize, every appropriate response. There's manuals upon manuals of what you have to know and learn, and it was awesome. Big puzzles to figure out, and the safety of everyone on board, depends on you. So high stakes, you got to be sharp. Um, the way it worked is you'd have an officer come in charge, and you might have, four or so people in the control room doing different things, and you have people out in the plant doing their different jobs. So you'll have an officer in there. Well, this guy comes in. Um, I'm getting relieved, so it's like a shift change. So like I'm leaving, you pass down all your information, the next guy takes over. The officer um, coming in spills his coffee. Now he is of the near the lowest rank officer possible. Not that it matters, like I mentioned before, any one officer in charge of any enlisted. Um, the officer is free to um, roam around a little bit. He's not necessarily tied to a station like we are. He um, comes in, spills his coffee. Why does he have coffee down there? I don't know. Doesn't matter. Not important, apparently. tells me to clean it up, demands that I clean it up, orders me to clean it up. Tired, my shift is over, I'm done. Tell him no, clean it up yourself. This is a big sin. I'm pretty sure in the old days they would just shoot you, and that's pretty much the way they wanted to treat it. Um, Not that there was a stuck-up asshole that came in who wouldn't clean up his own coffee. Why he had coffee, I don't know. Should have had it to begin with. Um, so it's a problem he created and didn't want to solve on his own. Uh, and I went and left. And of course, they dragged me out of bed and acted, like I had bitch slapped the captain or something. Um, this was the snowball where it became too far, where our ideals butted, um, me versus the institution. Um, and it never got back on track after that. Ultimately, there were things that could have saved my relationship with the Navy before we got to a red line. For me, for them, I can't speak for what their red line was, but for me, it was still recoverable um, until a short time after that. I was ready. I had done the studying I needed. I was ready to go and do my final, I'm going to call it interview, my final oral exam for qualifying for a reactor operator. And there was a time limit on this because remember I said we're going back. They're going to shut down the reactor. You have to schedule these things. So I went to tell my chief, okay, I'm ready. I got everything signed off. I'm prepared. I'm ready for my oral exam. He said no. Um, and that I would have to wait until the refit was over. And that was the red line for me. Because, like I mentioned before, you're essentially a slave before you've qualified. It doesn't matter what your rank are, you're the bitch. They want you to go do something, paint this hallway for 2 weeks straight, and repaint it and repaint it. Um, that's what you do. Um, so this was a retaliation, very clear. There was no reason to do it besides um, keeping the professional perpetual punish machine rolling for me. Um, so at this point, I decided I was done with the Navy. Um, the interesting thing is, even when your chief is done with you, the Navy doesn't necessarily mean they're done with you. They put a lot of money into training people. If they had put some amount of effort into um, what's the right way to put it? Problem reconciliation. It would have been a lot different. Um, I asked, I studied every way possible to try to get out, but they wouldn't let me. And they told me no. I studied their legal books. Um, I was in legal constantly. Um, so I had no path forward in the Navy. Or I should say, and really that's true because the amount of time until I would have been able to. They would have done. They would have never given me that exam. I was pretty confident. Um, we were going to be in dry dock for a while, um, and I was going to spend the next year um, cleaning, painting, hard labor. Now, the way the contract is set up, now remember they cheated me. They just flat out cheated me um, in the contract originally. So this piece of paper became sort of the bane of my existence um, because it was a constant reminder that these people tricked me um, by offering me virtually nothing. And we're talking like maybe 10%. I saw some people's other papers. They got 10 times what I got. So they tricked me, um, and they wouldn't let me go. This was very depressing. Um, and I got caught up in this institutional cycle where, um, what's the best way to put this? Once you get in trouble, you keep getting in trouble, and then you get in trouble for getting in trouble. Um, and there's only so many things they can do. Um, they can take away your rank. They can take away your pay, importantly, wink, wink. So they can actually charge you, or you're being fined $1,000 for what you did wrong, you're disobeying this order, or something like that, right? So they actually have a system, and I fell into it, where you get in trouble, they take away your pay, a month's pay, you're working for free, and you get in trouble again, and you start to see where this is going. Yes, you are hard laboring as a slave for no pay because you're in this perpetual cycle. This is what I was in, and when I realized this, um, is when I uh, gave up, and I just started to refuse to work. Um, now this timeline is wibbly wobbly, and I'm very sorry for this. We're going to talk about suicidal thoughts here, so if you're triggered by this, it has a good ending, and I think it has good lessons, but it is important to talk about. So let's review our setting here. So I'm, I am feeling every day this physical pain. It becomes worse now because now my sort of my purpose, my focus, being able to be the nuclear reactor operator, I can't do that anymore. That path is gone. They've taken that from me. So now I start to feel pain in my chest every day, and it's a physical pain. I can feel it. It's there. My heart is hurting. It gets worse every day. Um, uh, you wake up um, if you're not. Um, this is before we're deep into the trap cycle here. So I'm still living. I'm living off the ship. The ship is in dry dock. We haven't gotten into the cycle. We've crossed the red line, but we're not into the perpetual cycle yet. We're right there though. So um, I've been um, to medical. I've seen the Navy doctors. They tell me it's nothing. I'm just trying to get out of work. So I go to see a civilian doctor about my heart. Um, they run every test imaginable. The running one, they put the leads on you. Um, echocardiogram, is that right? I don't know. Um, he comes back in. He sits down. He goes, I've looked at everything. He hands me this little pill. He says, take this. I said, okay. So I take it. And he starts writing. He goes, I'm going to give you a prescription for it. I was like, what is it? He says, it's anxiety medication. You have anxiety. My world changed in that moment. Everything started to make sense. And I hated how ignorant I was, how ignorant the world around me was, that it came to this point. And this man legit saved my life in that moment. The awareness brings power. If you don't know something, if you don't have a name for something, if you don't understand something, it has power over you. This was a way. Now everything started to make sense. Um, so I went, I got the prescription. Um, I took the file he gave me. It has a picture of my heart too, like a little black and white picture of my heart. It was really cool. I took the whole file. I took my prescription. You cannot believe how happy I was. The pain went away. I was in a good mood. There was a bright light. I understood things now. I knew what I could work on. I'd identified the problem. I sat down. I put the file down. I remember this very vividly. I put the prescription bottle down. Um, and I was ready to make my report. So then the Navy people would be able to put that in my file. We finally had, we understood the problem, and then they could um, help me get this medication, or whatever equivalent. Looked at the file, he picked up the bottle, and he says, I'm keeping this. You can't have this. In that moment, I died. Um, Not the extreme paranoia of, my God, these people will not let me have anything. They exist to make me suffer. Not quite that level, but we're getting real close. Um, I Part of me did legit just die when I remember it very vividly. It's like watching your hopes and dreams be snatched, and then someone so callously doing it, like you don't matter, stepping on an ant or something. This um, brought me to my lowest point. Um, I think maybe this is the time I just gave up. Um, and I said I'm not going to work anymore. I want out. And of course, doing that is refusing. If they tell you to work, you're refusing an order, so they're going to take more of your pay, and then you're working for free. So I became imprisoned on a barge, not allowed to leave it. Um, no, I don't have the medication, so I'm feeling the anxiety again. Um, so my heart is hurting every day. It feels worse every day. There's no hope. Uh, I am going to be imprisoned or a slave until the contract is over. I tried everything. Said I was gay, uh, conscientious objector, which in reality I was. I didn't want to be a cog in the machine anymore. I didn't want to work for these people. Um, they didn't have the same values as me. Um, and then now I'm, trapped in this cycle. Um, I didn't see a way out, and every day became worse than the day before. And at the point where I recognized that every day was the worse than the day before, it just makes it worse, right? You can't get away. Tomorrow's not going to be better. The day after, it's not going to be better. A year is not going to be better. How's it going to be better in 10 years? Starts to take over, What's the point? Uh, Nothing I do matters. Nobody cares about me. These negative thoughts that invaded, um, they always have a kernel of truth, right? But they're not the truth. You don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. You don't know what's going to happen in 10 years. You don't know if you're going to be happy in 10 years. Now, I wasn't to the point of this thinking yet. I'm skipping, so I apologize. Um, but I want to give you the impression of how overwhelming things were, how hopeless things seemed. Um, so I was imprisoned on the barge. Uh, During this time was also a couple other bad things happened. I had a laptop. Um, I had some porn DVDs. One morning when I woke up, my lock had been busted off my locker. My laptop and my DVDs, there was movies and porn. DVDs were stolen. So I reported this, and because in my mind, I'm on this barge. Someone knew my laptop was in there. So there had to be someone around me, someone who'd seen it. And they're probably imprisoned on the barge, or likely. So I thought this was very irritating, obviously, but my detective work started to kick in. So I went to report it. I filled out the paperwork, and I asked the guy, "Has anyone else reported anything stolen lately?" And he was like, "Yeah, a couple of people," but he was very disinterested. I was like, "Well, can you take? I have my. Oh no, no, no. I remember." So I said, "Okay." So I went back, um, and I started to think about the lock was just that standard master lock with the dial on it. It turns out those are super cheap. You just take any type of crowbar thing and you just put it between the lock and you just push down on it and it'll snap them right off. They're cheap as fuck. Um, and I was next to the bed, so he had to do that while I was sleeping, quietly. Shows you how cheap they are. So for whatever reason, I was looking around and I got up on my bunk and I lifted up the ceiling and I looked up there in the ceiling. What did I find but a whole bunch of locks up there? Busted locks. So I got a few of them. I took them back down there and I was like, hey, there's definitely someone in here that's doing this. Here's the locks that I found up in the ceiling. Um, you can take fingerprints because he would have had to touch them all to put them up there. And he's like, oh, okay. So we go, and this time, I'm on the hunt, man. It's my laptop. Back then, it's like $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, something like that. Um, I see somebody with a porn DVD. I know it's mine because it was like scratched in the right way. I was like, "Hey, where'd you get that?" And he was like, "So and so sold it to me." Back to the investigator guy. Um, and he was like, "Oh, he got out today, or he went AWOL um, today, so I never got it back. But I did find out who it was. Nothing ever came of it that I know of, but he went AWOL. So that's an interesting story. But again, it shows you everything I had in my mind was taken away. So it's really hard to translate that mindset where, I didn't have very much left. I couldn't leave. I was stuck. They might tell me, you're going to go paint in this, not air conditioned room for 12 hours. Um, you don't get your breaks whenever you want, and for no money, right? And you'd have to do it for 30 or 60 days and not mess up at all, or say they might make up anything, or you might make one mistake, um, and not be paid for 30 days or something extreme. So the situation seemed very helpless for me. I know looking back or telling a story, maybe I don't do a good job. But then, my personal items were stolen. Um, I'm very alone. I don't have friends or anyone to talk about. Anyone I do talk about, if I just tell them something, it doesn't work in my favor. They'll just snitch or figure out a way to use it against me. So in my mind, I really see my future as okay, I'm gonna be eventually imprisoned in a room and just sit there like I'm in jail um, for who knows how long. And they were even threatening things like, your contract might be 4 active years, 4 reserve years. They would even tell me things like, you'll be here um, for your reserve years. We're not going to let you go. You need to do this or we're not going to let you go. So we're starting to look at a very, very long time. Um, and then, of course, my heart is hurting. They took my medication. Um, I'm still torn up about um, my girlfriend long ago, after years cheating on me. I still, love is something that I still wasn't able to process. Everything was bad. Um, and in my mind, I was telling myself there is no hope, there is no hope. And that was echoing. Um, I had an apartment or something previously. There's a way you can get off the ship if someone else signs for you to be your escort. Um, I knew this person was just gonna fuck off. Um, oh, I missed one of the cool stories. Let me go back because this is really important. Pause right here and go back. Um, one of the ways I was trying to get out, I'd never done drugs before, and I'd only done a little bit of drinking um, in high school. So one of the ways I wanted to get out was just fail a drug test, right? Um, so I one of the guys I had talked to before, he knew how to get some ecstasy, um, MDMA. And of course, I have only, Google knowledge, technical knowledge. I don't have any street knowledge of anything yet. So um, I ended up getting some from him. And this was before I was imprisoned. So we're going back. Um, so I was at my place and I took two, and they take a while to take effect. We'll do a drug segment at some time, talk about different drugs. But short story, they take a little bit, 30 minutes, 45 minutes to take effect normally before you start to feel anything. Well, I'd taken them very late at night because I, the drug test was coming up um, the next day, so I wanted to take them in time in order to pee. But I was already very tired, something like midnight or something, and I was on a day schedule. So I took two, and I had just fell asleep. Um, well, when I woke up, I thought, maybe they weren't working or something. Turns out, when you sleep, your metabolism slows down. It must have slowed way down. Getting ready for work, I didn't really feel anything. And you would drive to a parking lot, and then you would take like a bus from a parking lot to your more secured area where the ship was. Um, so I drove there. It was just fine. I was sitting on the bus, looking out the window, and this was a cool experience. And all of a sudden, everything that was green was sort of I only saw I could only focus on anything that was green. So I was riding along the bus looking out the window. There's not a lot of green, right? We're like in a shipyard, but like patches of grass or a tree or someone's shirt. Um, Everything that was green was sort of like focused for me, and it hit me there on the bus, and it was incredible and an enjoyable experience. So the first thing you do when you get on the ship in the morning is you have a little meeting with everybody. I didn't give a fuck. Uh, I'm pretty sure anyone who any streetwise knew that I was high. Um, they put me for cleaning some old corner, like a literal stairwell or something for that. I didn't give a shit. Uh, I went and just painted and cleaned and didn't give a shit. Um, so it was a good day. We had our piss test, and I told them, I think I'm trying at this point to get out. And I was like, yeah, took ecstasy. So the piss test will come back positive. And he said, okay. Yeah, my test came back negative. I asked for it at one point, and they showed me because I thought they just tossed it. But that's the link. Um, there's no way it was negative. Um, um, that's the link they were going to go to. So in my mind, this is still relevant. Like they will literally do anything to keep me later on imprisoned, um, as their literal slave. Um, because I wasn't being paid. Um, so that was a situation I found myself in. Um, every day was worse. I was feeling this pain in my heart all the time. I did not see any hope. They were threatening to keep me long past um, when I was supposed to get out. They cheated me originally anyway. Um, and then, they took away, um, they wouldn't let me qualify on my main job. So even in my division before this snowball chain, you know, they were going to keep me as um, like a little janitor, like their little bitch, um, instead of um, giving me the seniority of qualifying and not being able to do that anymore. So um, I started to give up on life. Um, and I had had a gun before, and I decided my plan was to um, get off the barge and to go back to my place and get my gun and kill myself. So there was a way you can do that. You can get someone to sign off as your escort. Said I need to go get something, whatever. I knew he was gonna fuck off. He didn't care. Um, and I went back to my place. I got my gun. I loaded it. I pointed it at my head. And um, what, because I'm having these internal logic battles all the time. And what ended up winning at that last second is that I or you can't know what it will be like in 10 years. You could be happy in 10 years. You could have a family. You don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. You could be happy tomorrow. Um, and there's no way to get around that, right? So all that doom and gloom, this is worse every day, that doesn't have to be true tomorrow. Um, and there is always hope. And instead of pulling the trigger while it was pointed at my head, I pointed it down and I pulled the trigger and I shot myself in the leg, in the left leg. And it was another moment where everything changed in my life. And I wouldn't understand that change until the next day. There was an ambulance. I was in the hospital. And as soon as the Navy found out I was in a civilian hospital, they brought people to take me to a Navy hospital. Um, I think it was, I was annoyed. I wanted to be done with these people, and here they came and got me. And I was just wondering, what are they gonna do to me now? Um, and let's just say I was surprised. But the big thing I noticed the next day, um, I refused pain medication, by the way. Um, this is sort of, it may be hard to understand because I haven't really explained it, but I have a very, I talked about it with pneumonia where I refused to go to the hospital. I was a very much in a pain and suffering makes me stronger type of overall vibe. Um, and I very much wanted to feel the pain to remember it, and hopefully make me a better person. What I was most surprised, because I knew they weren't giving me any medication, is that my heart did not hurt the next day or the next day. It had stopped. And this led my mind to trying to figure out why. Why, without medication, do I get the same result as if I had taken those pills before that they took away? Why is the pain stopping? I had shocked my system, reset it. And I've read later about mental breakdowns. There's this catharsis that happens. And this is, happened again. Not suicide. Suicidal thoughts are off the table. I'm well past that. That issue is solved. Um, but that catharsis, that having a mental breakdown or people snapping and then having clarity is something that's known about. Um, so it was a big moment in my life. Um, now I have to go to the bathroom. So we're going to stop it here. It's kind of an awkward place to stop, because it was so negative, but it led to such positive things. I'm gonna go take care of things and get something to eat and drink. Take some more medicine for my throat, and then try to record the next part, the recovery and what we learned, and the Navy's response, comical response. Spoilers. Um, yeah, so don't be discouraged. Um, Hopefully, there are good lessons to learn here, and that it helps someone shortcut their way through things so they don't have to go through all the pain. Um, and I'll talk to you later.